What's your biggest source of inspiration for when you sit down to write?
It doesn't go in that order. I don't say, I'm going to sit down to write, what's my inspiration?
Mm-hmm.
The order for me is, I'm inspired, I better write it down. What that lesson means, I think, for most people is, if you are looking for inspiration, you will find it. Meaning, whenever I'm in an interaction, if I'm on an airplane flight that goes well, if I'm on an elevator and there's some sort of interaction, if I'm thinking about what socks to wear the next day. Every day for the last 5 years, I've worn socks that don't match. Well, that led to half a book and plenty of things to talk about. Most people who encounter a little mismatched sock company just keep moving. What I spend my day doing is looking for things that are worth commenting on.
You have a very unique way of delivering a specific concept. What's your inspiration or the process that goes behind being able to take a concept that many people might think you could explain it in a very in-depth way and you deliver it?
Well, the good reason to answer that question is because someone watching this might want to learn how to write like that. So the first thing I'd say is, don't try to write like that. Because you got to write the way you want to write.
Sure.
But the useful thing that very few people teach, I have to say, in my high school yearbook, my high school English teacher wrote to Seth Godin, the bane of my existence, you will never amount to anything. And in college, I majored in engineering and took exactly one English course. So don't worry about what people tell you about your ability to write. That's bogus. I write like I talk. That saves an enormous amount of time and effort. Very few people have the guts to write like they talk. But if you think about all the people you don't know anybody who's incoherent, and you don't know anybody who's so boring you don't want to hear a word that they say. So write like you talk. When I write like I talk, it means that I can write a book in 4 weeks if I want to, because I can talk that much in 4 weeks, so I can just write that much in 4 weeks. If you want to, you can dictate it. In the era of the internet, record something, send it out, the next day it comes back typed. And if you don't like it, talk differently. I happen to talk in a way that's informed by having gone to business school and a way that's informed by having run a summer camp. That when you spend a lot of time with 200 kids who are 12, 14 years old, who don't have to listen to you, you learn how to talk in short but complete sentences. You learn how to touch on things that they care about right now and then move on. You learn how to, at some level, put on a show that's worth watching and that sticks with them 2 days later, 2 years later, 20 years later. So when I run into people who I taught canoeing to in 1990 or 1982, they remember. They remember because I tried to get them to remember. I set out to teach a lesson that wasn't just like everybody else's. That's the problem with the dummies books. The dummies books are for writers who don't have the guts to write and for readers who don't have the guts to read. And good for them that they sold so many copies, but don't aspire to be anonymous and replaceable, because we got plenty of people like that.
Sure.
Everyone thinks their particular story is interesting. In fact, the best way to start a conversation if you meet someone is, so how'd you get into this line of work?
Yeah.
And everyone's answer is always, well, it's an interesting story. It's actually not that interesting. I started my first business when I was 14. When I was 16, I started a ski club at my high school, and I ran it through high school. When I was in college, I took over and then ran the largest student-run business in the country. And these were all fun experiences for me. The goal wasn't how much money could I make. I made $50 a week in the college business. It was, isn't it cool that somebody who doesn't have a degree, that somebody who doesn't have authority is able to make things happen? And so in college, we started a ticket agency and a snack business and a laundry service and a temporary employment agency and a concert booking bureau and lots of other things. Every couple of weeks, we started a new one, and it worked, and it got bigger and bigger, and it was fun. That confirmed for me that I didn't want to have a real job. I went to business school right after college because my only alternative was to get a real job. My goal from business school was to get one job, only one job after I left, and then go out on my own, and that's what I did. The job I got, I was very lucky in that It was for the right company at the right time. It was fast growing. They gave me a lot of responsibility. It was a software company.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to learn about how to manage software engineers, how to bring things to market, packaging, advertising. I didn't get anybody's permission or approval to do the things I did when I was there. I just did them because that was my background. I'd always just done stuff.
Sure.
And what I learned in that environment is it's really hard to get fired. If you are making positive change for the right reasons, it's very unlikely the place you work is going to say, with no warning, you're fired. They just don't do that. Sometimes they may say, that's not working in this organization, settle down. But then you can settle down if you choose to, or you can leave. So that was a very formative experience for me, understanding that I could work with well-known brands like Michael Crichton and Perry Mason, that I could go on a sales call to Radio Shack and sell stuff that ended up in 3,000, 6,000 stores. I was 24 years old and I was exploring how you impact organizations, how you have an impact on consumers. I was sitting in my office one day in 1985 and the phone rang and this guy said, I just played Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 game that you launched, which had come out 2 weeks earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And he proceeded to tell me how much he liked it. I didn't realize at the time who Herbie Hancock was. Like, I sort of knew who Herbie Hancock was, but looking back on it, like, here's Miles Davis, this guy calling me on the phone telling me how much he liked my game. I mean, it was like pretty amazing. Once I had experienced what that was like, I didn't want to do anything else. I wanted to make stuff. I wanted to ship stuff. I wanted to explore this idea of change and starting. Starting in 1991, I started doing internet stuff because I have a long history of being online, and it felt like the same sort of environment where you could take an idea, impact people, it would scale, and you could do it again. So I started a company called Yoyodyne that did interactive direct mail. It was the very first time I ever raised money from the outside. I'd always bootstrapped every project I'd ever done. So,
how was that process?
The bootstrapping or the
raising the money?
In 1994, it was very, very difficult to raise money for anything. In 1995, it was so easy. It was, like walking through the zoo with a bag of Purina. The animals would follow you. In that transition time, you had to make some decisions. Some of the decisions we made were good. Some of them weren't so good. There were competitors of ours who had raised $40 million. We raised $4 million. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to compete against a company with $40 million in the bank. We built that company. We grew it. I acted like a bootstrapper the whole time, which probably wasn't very smart, but that's who I am. Mm-hmm. And timing-wise, we were very fortunate. In 1999, I sold the company to Yahoo.